Hello and welcome back to Suspended Fanimation. I'm your host, Dennis Patholkas, and this is Watchmen, Season 1, Episode 3. She was killed by space junk. Welcome, everybody. These titles, I swear, are just. And the thing that's really stupid about these things is the titles are only kind of reveal at the last scene of the episode. I've been noticing. Yeah, let's get some business out of the way first. If you like what you see here, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, like, share, and subscribe. Also, if you're still on the fence about joining up, you're going to see at the very end, there's going to be a video that pops up here, and that is going to be taken from my vast video library based on the stuff that you are watching, all the algorithm of the stuff that you're watching, and it plucks a video out of my library that matches that the best and plucks it up there for you. Up here is going to be Saturday Morning Blast Off. That's what's going to go up there. I have a Twitter, I have an Instagram. I also have a Patreon page, but I don't have a tier set up as of yet. I also have if you want to see when I'm going to be on live again next, you can hit the bell down below here. And that's a 50-50 chance of YouTube actually notifying you of when I'm going to be on. If you want to see when I'm really going to be on, go to my uh, website, suspendedfanimation.com, which has my schedule up there. I change it out every week. And I also put it on my Facebook page as well. I have a Facebook group page as well where you guys can talk amongst yourselves and post things of that nature. So, with that out of the way, as usual, what I normally do is do a little bit of a recap and then review of the episode. So, spoiler alert, I am going to spoil the episode. If you have not seen the episode, go and watch it. Come on back. This will be a video. You can comment down below in the comment section. Thank you, Viking Bitch, for the brand new paddle, as I almost whacked myself in the face with it, which is the way it's supposed to be, right? Yeah. So we see this woman enter a phone booth, this weird kind of phone booth, blue phone booth. And we see that she's making a phone call into Mars and making a phone call to Dr. Manhattan, which is kind of a weird thing. And she decides that, she tells him her name's Laurie and that she's going to tell him a joke about a bricklayer and that he wants to pass on his knowledge to his daughter, of course. And as she's telling this joke, we see her going to a bank to go and rob it. And it's really that she's an FBI agent who is setting a trap for a vigilante who comes in, costume vigilante. And everyone in the bank, including the customers and everything, are all FBI. And he turns to try and run, and she shoots him in the back, takes him down, and arrests him. And outside, the crowd is just basically booing them and the cops, and they're yelling at her. And we find out her name is Agent Blake, so her name is Laurie Blake. Sound familiar at all? Yes, it's comedian's daughter, of course, Laurie Blake. And yes, played by the ever awesome Gene Smart. Gene Smart, who was in Legion last and did a great job in Legion. So her whole joke ends up with the little girl throwing the brick into the air. There's a final brick they're building a barbecue. There's one brick left over, and she decides to throw the brick into the air, but then she's fucked up the joke, supposedly. So, and yes, supposedly the joke does have relevance. We'll get to that in a little bit. Uh, the writing on the show is very, 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 very messy. So much so, as a matter of fact, that it just bounces back and forth all over the place. And there's some bits that actually feel like comedy, quite honestly. And I don't know where they're going with it. So we see Agent Blake goes home, puts on some Devo, feeds a mouse to something in a cage, and then she opens up a briefcase that is glowing blue at her when she gets a knock at the door. And she turns off the music, and we find out it's Senator King. And Senator King is going to send her to Tulsa to investigate the chief's death, of course. And because he thinks it's a vigilante that's going down there, not the 7th Cavalry. And he's also the one who wrote DOPA, or Defensive Police Act, which allows police to cover over their faces after the whole Tulsa massacre. What was it? White Night is what it was called. Um, then he says that has reduced crime 83% in Tulsa, and for 3 years. And of course, doesn't hurt that all this stuff will happen and make him president. because Robert Redford has been president for the last 30 years, and someone needs to take over at some point in time. So we see Laurie taking a shot at another joke about comedian or not comedian, excuse me, heroes all going up to heaven and facing God, and they're all based on somebody. Owlman, of course. Doctor Manhattan is one of them, of course, and Vite, Adrian Vite, uh, Osmandius, basically. Um, so she walks in on a presentation of the Seventh Cavalry that's going on by Director Farragut. And when Rorschach is mentioned by the guy who's operating the slides, they're actually using a slideshow presentation, which is just archaic. But anyway, Rorschach is mentioned, and Director Farragut actually says, "Who gives a shit about Rorschach?" That tells you a lot about what's going on in this series. um, we also find out in this episode that they are basing this entire series on the comics. It's not the movie; they're basing it on the comics, which would be fine if you're actually basing it on the comics and not your own material that you're just using the comics as a cover for. So we'll get to that in a little bit too. Yeah, so the glowing blue briefcase reminded me of Mr. Robot as well, Ken. I agree with you on that. So, Director Farragut says that she's going to go into Tulsa and she's going to take a team with her. And she's like, "Nope, I'm going to go in alone." He goes, "Nope, you're not going in alone." She goes, "Okay, I'll take the dude who's operating the slideshow there, just him and me." So, the newbie, the guy who, she's calling Petey, is what his name is, he kind of jokes, not joking around, but he goes, "Oh, well, I've got a mask." And because when in Rome, you do like what they do. And she goes, "You're a federal agent. That doesn't pertain to you. The DOPA does not pertain to you. So you're not going to be wearing that." And as they're flying in, they see the Millennium Clock, which is supposed to be the first wonder of the world that has been set up there in Tulsa. I guess whoever bought Vates Industries actually was the one that built the clock in his name, kind of thing. So the newbie says that Osmandius basically has been declared dead because no one has seen him, but there are rumors that he had plastic surgery and lives incognito someplace. And she accuses him of being a fanboy, basically. And she goes, "What do you want, my autograph?" kind of thing. And he goes, "I have a PhD in history." And he basically tells her all this stuff. He goes, "So I really don't appreciate you calling me a fanboy." And so she, of course, apologizes to him at that point. So they travel all over town. We see, and as she's telling this joke, I mean, the joke keeps reoccurring as a voiceover. And there, we see them traveling over town, all over town, going to the crime scene, interviewing people like Crawford's wife and things like that. And they end up at an abandoned looking warehouse. And he goes, "Are you sure this is the place?" She goes, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. You're the history teacher. What do you think?" And they see this police van pull up, and out pops Pirate Jenny and Red Scare, and they've got a suspect, of course. This is the police station. They finally found out where the police station is. It's very nondescript. And Lori goes up, introduced herself as an FBI agent, and that she is going to go in to she wants to meet Looking Glass. The other thing I kind of found interesting, it was a kind of an aside, but she's eating sunflower seeds and she gives it to Petey, the bag to Petey, and she goes, "Don't eat any of those." Which I don't know if she was just saying, "Don't eat any of my sunflower seeds," or "Don't eat any of them because there's something special about them." I don't know. uh is Osmandius locked away in a bubble pocket universe? I don't know, EJR. I don't think so. I really don't think so. I he's in self-exile, but he could be. I don't know. Again, it's mystery box writing is what this is, so you're only given enough information that they don't even know what's going on. Quite honestly, I'm fairly sure the writers don't know what's going on either at this point. And we're only given, a couple of breadcrumbs here and there as to what's happening. We don't even really have backstories on these characters, to tell you the truth, other than Lori, because we know Lori from the comics. I agree with you, Renz. Pretentious writing. Exactly, pretentious writing. It's bad writing too, is what this is. So they end up going in. She meets Looking Glass. Looking Glass is actually in the pod with somebody, and he releases him and says, "This guy's clean. He can go." And she goes, "I want to go in next." She goes in and grabs his remote and asks him what this pod is. And she goes, "Oh, it's a racist detector." And he goes, No, not technically." She goes, "Well, it detects racists, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, okay." And she goes, "Well, why don't you take that silly face off and we'll talk?" And she knows who he is. She knows his name, his rank, and all that kind of stuff. So he removes his face. And she wants to know the specifics about the chief's death and wants to know why there was no toxicology report done. And he says, of course, because of all the ligature marks that were happening on his neck and, all the hanging, that basically hanging was the cause of death. And so they found no need of doing a toxicology report, which, of course, if anyone knows, when you're doing a crime scene, you always do a toxicology report, even if the cause of death looks to be straightforward at this point. You cover all your bases. That's what it's supposed to be. So they're like, "Well, how'd you find out where the Seventh Cavalry were held up at?" And he says, "Oh, through secondary interrogation by Sister Knight." And she goes, "Oh," and she knows Sister Knight's real name is Anita, and or Angela, excuse me, Anita. Bleh. My brain's going elsewhere. Angela. And she knows, she goes, "Well, where's Angela now?" And he says, "Well, she's writing the chief's eulogy because the funeral's happening in a couple hours." She goes, "Well, shit, I better get something dark on than to wear." So she goes over to the funeral, Chief Crawford's funeral there, and there's protesters outside, and they have to hand over their guns. They get their card checked, and there's cops everywhere. There are security, all this kind of stuff. Lori meets Angela, and she knows Angela and Cal's name, and shakes their hands and says, "My condolences." And she goes, "You know what? I'm FBI. I'm here to help. If you need anything, here's my pager number." And Angela, of course, tells her, "I'm retired. I haven't been a, a cop for a long time, for a couple of years." And yeah, of course, Lori's not buying this and going, "Yeah, okay, sure." So as Angela is giving the eulogy, one of the cavalrymen is crawling through a tunnel. We see him crawling through a tunnel under some dirt, and he pops up, of course, in a crypt right nearby the funeral. And Angela's singing "I'm Heading for the Last Roundup" because it was, I guess, Chief Crawford's final wish for her to sing that. When the cavalryman comes out of he comes running out of the crypt, and he's got a bomb strapped to his chest with a finger on the trigger and says, "I've got a dead man switch. If you kill me, if my heart stops, the bomb goes off." And he says he wants the senator, Senator King, who is there. And Senator King's like, "Don't worry, I'm going with him. He's going over there." And Lori shoots him and kills him. And the bomb activates. Angela grabs the body. First, she tells everyone to run. She grabs the body, drags it, throws it into the grave, and then dumps the chief's coffin on top of him. And it explodes. But she saves everybody's life at this point. Then we see Adrian Veidt out in. He's building a suit for Mr. Phillips and asks him if he's ready to venture into the great beyond. And Phillips, of course, is ready somewhat because, of course, he has no other choice in the matter of the way he's been built. And we see Phillips' frozen corpse return. And Veidt is pretty pissed about it and just starts kicking the shit out of him and like breaking up the corpse and all that kind of stuff. Um, And we see him go buffalo hunting. He says, "Well, we need a thicker hide," is what he tells the, I guess, new Mr. Phillips now at this point. And he goes out to go buffalo hunting with a bow and kills a buffalo by shooting it in the eye. And when he goes over there to go skin it, there's a guy that's up on the hill with a mask on who takes a shot at him and, shoots at his foot. And Vate leaves. He returns home to another round of He's a Jolly Good Fellow with the cake there. I don't know what the hell's going on with that cake, why he keeps getting a cake, and why it's always "He's a Jolly Good Fellow" if he needs to be reminded of it all the time, which he, of course, throws to the floor. And he is told that he has a letter from the game warden. And the game warden basically says, you know, we had an agreement when you showed up here. Um, and that warning shot was just a warning shot this time. Next time you go through this and you try and do this again, I'm gonna kill you. So of course he writes back or dictates back a letter to the game warden that he's out there for sport, and if you need to talk to me about what's going on and my character, blah blah blah, you can come and visit, kind of thing. And then he says, "Get my other horse ready because I'm going to ride at midnight. I'm going to go hunting again." And we see him dress up in the Osmandius costume, which I have to admit was a pretty badass looking costume. So Senator King is in front of the media, you know, basically saying, you know, the cops are actually the heroes in all of this, and you know, he's basically kind of rebuffing anything because you know, that he went to go and uh, go with the Seventh Cavalry member that was telling him to come with him, and yeah, so he says, "I'm not the hero; the cops are." At this point, Laurie, in the meantime, takes Petey's untouched coffee with her and enters the crime scene and finds Angela in the tunnel, in the crypt there with her owl glasses on, and offers her the coffee. And she thanks Lori, you know, Lori thanks her for saving her life, asks how her kids are and all that stuff, and tells her, you know what, I really didn't think he had the dead man switch on him because 9 times out of 10, they're lying about that. They don't go through the hassle of putting that together. She goes, I was wrong. And, she says, "Well, you know, and the chief saved us," is what you know. Angela says. She goes, "Yeah." She goes, "Too bad I can't exhume the body and you know do a blood workup." And Angela takes offense to it, and she goes, "Well," she goes, "Is that some kind of joke?" And she goes, "No, we were really going to dig it up the next day and do some blood work on the chief's body because it wasn't done." And she goes, "You might be too close to this to be actually working this case. That's why I'm here." She goes, like, at the bottom of the base of the tree, I found wheelchair marks. Um, she also says that Chief Crawford had a secret compartment in his closet, and there was a naked bust in there when I looked in there. And she goes, "Do you know what was in there?" And Angela's like, "Why would I know it's in there?" And she goes, "Well, his wife said you were the last person that was in that room at the time. And I don't think you have any kind of fainting spells going on. You're a little too robust for that," as she puts it. And then Lori gives her this tough speech about eating good guys for breakfast. And Angela just kind of looks at her and goes, "Ooh," she actually does that. And then pours out the coffee and leaves. Why did she leave the glasses? It was an active crime scene pen. Somebody was probably going to pick it up at some point. Who knows? So we find out what's inside Lori's briefcase. That briefcase that she opened with the blue glow. It's a giant blue dildo. And a cover of Esquire magazine with her and Dr. Manhattan embracing. Yeah. But instead, she ends up going over to Petey's room and fucks him, basically, with the mask on. She has him put the mask on. Yeah. Oh, man. So we have Lori still talking on the phone about this joke about these three heroes going to heaven. Owlman, of course, was given the gift of being able to build gadgets, and what did he do with them? He built a flying machine, and God asked, "Did you kill anybody?" And he goes, "No." And so God snaps his finger and sends him to hell. Um, the Vite, the smart man, or which is supposed to be Vite, of course, who says that what he did was is he got humanity all together by creating this squid monster, which he dropped on Manhattan and killed 3 million people. And God says, "You're a monster," and sends him to hell. So then finally, it's Dr. Manhattan's turn, the blue guy, and how he says, you know, it's already been predetermined. I already know what you're going to say. Doesn't matter what I do. I'm in hell anyways, is what he says. That's the joke at that point. And then he notices the woman off on the side there who is goes, "I'm sorry, I didn't see you here before." God says, "I didn't see you here. It's kind of embarrassing. I've never done this before." And he asks her who she is, what kind of power she has. She doesn't have any powers. And he goes, "Well, then who are you?" And she goes, "I'm the one who threw the brick in the air." And just then God looks up to too late to see the brick coming down, which hits him in the head, and his brains come out of his nose and all this kind of stuff, killing God. And where does God go when he dies? He goes to hell. That's the joke, quite honestly. And she leaves the phone booth, and she basically says that, she goes, I don't know why I call you and tell you these jokes. You don't really give a shit about humanity. You've been out on Mars for 30 years now. You don't give a shit about us. And her call is coming to an end. It's basically giving her a time limit that she can leave this message. And it hangs up on her, of course, and it says her message will be delivered in 40 minutes or 40 seconds. And we see her walking outside, and she has this weird feeling and looks up and sees this car drop, and it's Angela's car, which of course had Louis Gossett Jr. in it, the last we saw, and it crashes to the ground. And she looks up and sees Mars and starts laughing because that was the punchline to the joke, of course, that she told him over the phone. And quite honestly, that's the end of the episode. And I'm going, what the fuck does this have to do with anything? Because yeah, I'm kind of tired of Tulsa, to tell you the truth at this point. Um, I want to see more of the outside world. We get a little bit of mention of the Russians in this episode, but we don't hear exactly what the hell's going on with the Russians. Um, yeah, I really don't know where this series is going. And it's not in a good way. It's not like Mr. Robot where we don't know where it's going, but it's actually uh enjoyable that way because of this is just more frustrating more than anything else. It's mystery box. We haven't delved into any of the characters really. We don't care about any of the characters, quite frankly. Um, you've hung a really good comic as the bones on top, or I should say, on top of the bones of another story, which isn't fitting. It isn't working, and I don't know um, if it's going to work. To tell you the truth, on this. And yes, I know I'm getting, a lot of people are hating what I'm on my reviews on this one, quite honestly. I think I had 8 downvotes on the last on my last video, but hey, it's my opinion on this one, man. I'm not if you like it, that's great. I am not. I am not digging this at this point. Uh uh am I sticking with it? Yeah, I guess. I mean, what is this episode 3 right now? And I don't know. I'll see next episode where I'm at on this. If it really pisses me off next episode, I might just end it because yeah, it's just kind of that aggravating to tell you the truth. Going through it, so um, and it's not getting any better for me. Yeah, I know I'm not as hard on it as some channels are. I could be a lot more harsher about it, but quite honestly, there's no reason to be. The writing's horrible. Let's put it this way. So Damon Lindelof is just a horrible writer. He really is. I read enough of him, read enough from him, I should say. I've seen enough of his shows, uh, his thought processes, I guess you could say. I just murdered that word, but hey, his thought processes to see that he doesn't have a good, clear indication of where he wants to go with this story. He never set it up properly. He never set the world up properly. It took to the 3rd episode before we figured out that it's actually from the comics. It's not from the movie that they're actually pulling this material from. I mean, we had clues that it was probably the comics, but they're being coy in all their interviews that, well, it's probably some of the movie, probably some of the comics. No, make a decision on that shit because they're different. They are different. Penn says, I still say this episode is better, but only because of Gene. Yeah. Gene Smart was actually good in it. I'd like her as Laurie Blake. That's fine. Um, quite honestly, You could have made this the first episode and kind of interspersed some cut back on the fucking the jokes that she was telling Dr. Manhattan, and instead showed the death of the chief and just got a different actor, like a lesser actor to play the chief. I don't know. It's really hard to find out where they're going with this, really. And yeah, I can't recommend it, to tell you the truth, to anybody. For me, this episode, um, I would say this is a 6 out of 10, quite honestly. Even with Gene Smart. I mean, I like Gene Smart and everything, but yeah, I would say this is a 6 out of 10 for me on this. And yeah, I agree with you, Penn. We have faith in Mr. Robot going somewhere. In this show, not so much. Um, I don't know. How about the rest of you guys out there? Are any of you enjoying this at all? Am I just being really harsh on it? Am I just not, quote unquote, understanding it? You know, people say that a lot. When they want to knock down your opinion on things, they go, "Oh, you just don't understand it. You don't get it." All right, I don't get it. I guess, which is fine. There are plenty of other shows that are out there right now. We'll see next episode what happens. Don't be surprised if you get a cancellation of me doing reviews on this show, though, because it's headed that way. Quite honestly, it really is. Um, but yeah, going back, Ejar, to your question about is Osmandius locked away in a bubble or a pocket universe? I don't think he is, because PD said that Osmandius basically sold his company, got plastic surgery, took off someplace. So he is someplace of his own accord. But then again, he's sending out these, I guess, clones, if you will, to test out going out into the ether. So maybe Dr. Manhattan put him someplace. I don't know. Because in the comics, Dr. Manhattan just basically leaves him alone. He does the same thing in the movie. He just kind of leaves him alone because there's nothing he can do to him. He's already, Ozymandias has already done his job, and also wasn't Vite dying of cancer as well? Wasn't that part of it? I don't remember. I haven't read in a long time. So, God, having a my neck's actually tensing up thinking about it. Yeah. And I agree with you, Pen. I can take it or leave it as well. So with that said, if you like what you see here, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, like, share, and subscribe. If you're still on the fence about joining up, take a look. You're going to see a video that pops up here at the very end of this video. And basically, what it is it takes the algorithms, all the stuff you've been watching, and plucks a video in my vast video library that matches your algorithms straight up there. And up here is going to be Saturday Morning Blast Off. Is what's going to be up there. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram. I have a Patreon, but no tier set up as of yet. And there's a Facebook page uh, where you can actually take a look at my schedule. My schedule is also up on suspendedfanimation.com. And there we go. That's most of it there. I find Jeremy Irons to be believable as an older version of the actor who played the role in the movie. Yeah, I like Jeremy Irons in the role, but then again, it's also being played for comedy. That was the other thing that kind of bothered me about the whole Osmandius stuff, or Ozymandias, is that it's being played for comedy more than seriousness, and so I can't take it serious because the writing isn't taking it seriously. So I don't know where they're going with it, to tell you the truth. It's the tone of this episode shifted so often too that Yeah, I don't know where they're going. I really don't know where they're going with this. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. It's a mystery box is what it is. Hey, Stanley. You caught me at the end of my live thing here. So, with that said, I'm gonna let you guys go for the evening. Thank you, everybody who joined me tonight in the chat. Thank you if you made it this far in the video. Excuse me. Again, take a look at the very end here. If you're still on the fence, take a look at the video up here. Take a look at Saturday Morning Blast stuff over here. And until then, was it tomorrow is going to be His Dark Materials? That's the premiere of that. Tuesday is going to be Is It Worth My Time? And it's going to be the history of time travel. Wednesday and Thursday I'm off. Friday is Titans, and Saturday is Saturday Morning Blast Off. So there we go. Thank you, everybody. I will see you tomorrow. Until then, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Otherwise, Lori Blake may pull a gigantic blue dildo out of her blue briefcase and brandish it at you, and you really don't want that because that thing was freaking huge. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.